everybody. Welcome to the Voxology Podcast. I'm in a bad mood. My name's Mike Erre, and I'm often in a bad mood. And Tim didn't know I'm in a bad mood. I'm just in a bad mood, Tim.
Why?
I did not scroll Twitter, TwitX, before we get on. I was just looking around at like, oh, what's happened in the last week? And it's awful.
It's awful.
And I don't literally want to spend half an hour every episode just rehashing stuff we hate and why it's bad. But they don't stop, Tim.
They don't stop.
And so Tim Stafford, this doesn't usually happen. Tim Stafford's usually, in a less buoyant mood than Mike Erre. That's true. And I think that's to be expected. That's going to have to carry us. I am. So just things. And I waver. Anne Lamott had a great editorial where she was just talking about the role of humor, the role of joy and mirth and levity in a world like ours. And I was just all in. And I'm so much happier when I'm not immersed. And I don't spend a lot of time on the social medias. I send memes to you and Kevin. Lots of memes.
True.
Yep, that's true. Best one today was a guy saying, "Man, I go to the bathroom number 2 every morning at 5 a.m. sharp." And his buddy, there's 2 old guys sitting on a porch. His buddy says, "Well, what's wrong with that?" And he said, "Well, I don't wake up till 7." And I just am like, yes, I have a tribe that I can send that to.
Yeah.
I'm not off and on is my point.
That's important.
And then I go on and I'm just like, well, what's happened? So I have like 21,000 likes, and it's just, and I don't like things, but I like things to bookmark because I want to keep a record of, and it's really horrible stuff that I'm liking. It's like, well, here's another pastor that's sexually assaulting teens. And here's another, here's another Christian celebrity who we find out was, very different than their public persona.
What?
And I was just reviewing those right before I got it. And the big one this week was, of course, Douglas Wilson, some pastor in Idaho, is it, or something? It makes sense it would be Idaho, who was interviewed by CNN of all places to give him what? And I watched a lot of the interview, and it's patriarchy isn't a strong enough word for this guy. No. It's like we should repeal the 19th Amendment. Households should vote, and women can advise their husbands, but husbands. And then there was this other pastor on that was saying like, the wives choose the husbands to be their representative when it comes in the voting box, and that wives or women are just people that other people come out of. And
which he pretty much says almost word for word.
Word for word. No, that's I think that's almost a quote.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here and I'm just like, and then our freaking defense secretary. This is where it gets me. Granted, assholery has always existed. I've been a purveyor. I understand this. But when a freaking government official says, and the quote above it is what, all of Christ for all of life. And then he quotes this part. And that's, what do we even say? It's so nonsensical, but like the people who already agree with it being nonsensical are already, probably listening. So no one's listening to us going, yeah, I actually think that's true. But so do you spend time on it, Tim? Do you just acknowledge it and move on? It's demonic is what it is. Like,
I think you have to acknowledge it though.
His views on spanking are demonic and abusive. No. If you do a little bit of dive on this.
Doug Wilson or Pete Hegseth?
Doug.
Or
Pete.
Both.
Well, yeah, who knows, man. All I'm saying is we have a high-ranking government official saying all of Christ for all of life. And what that means is here's this pastor that thinks women shouldn't vote anymore. And we're all just like, oh, okay. It's just Tuesday or whatever day it was. I'm just so fed up. I'm so fed up. This administration is the most idolatrous, corrupt administration I think we have ever seen. And I wasn't even around for most of them. So I'm just maybe not. And I have people who get mad at me. They're like, where were you during Biden? And I'm like, well, Biden didn't put his name on a Bible, for crying out loud. Biden wasn't claiming Christ's blessing over some of these policies. I didn't agree with Biden. Good Lord. You can critique an administration without validating another one. Anyway, I'm in a bad mood is the point, Tim. Okay?
But it is important to call these things. People didn't show up in the last election. This is what happens when people start to tune out or think that he's just blowing wind or whatever.
Oh, he's blowing
this kind
wind.
of stuff we'll get away with. But I mean, we've seen so many things like over just kind of upturned. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to sneak through stripping women's rights. It's so, while it seems so dumb and like, you know, like they're just kind of saying things, this kind of stuff will happen. So people got to pay attention. People got to get involved.
Yeah.
You cannot sit on the sidelines anymore.
Speaking of involved, we're having 2 World Relief partnerships. I know. I've got to get Lord's Prayer because then I'm happy. So World Relief is an organization that deals with loads of like compassion aid stuff in the world. And they do deal a lot with immigration and refugee issues. And Matthew Sorens is a friend of ours. We did an event together in California that's on our YouTube channel. And he's just fantastic. We just absolutely, I love him and I love his perspective. And so we decided we're going to do 2 in Tennessee, 1 in Nashville on the 25th and 1 in Memphis on the 26th. And if you are in those areas or could retweet or Instagram or whatever the stuff that we'll put out, that would be really, really helpful. We want as many people as possible to sort of be exposed to this because I'm doing a 10-minute, like, here's what the Bible is saying and how we understand this, even though we're not a theocracy, at least not yet. And then he's going to do a much more compelling, like, here are the facts on the ground. Here are the distinctions between those that have temporary protected status, those that are immigrants, those are refugees. Here's asylum seekers, you know, the whole thing. So anyway, really, really, and we just had a very generous person contribute to that, some of the expenses of those events. And so thank you. If you want to do that, let me know. All that is to say, friends, speaking and doing stuff, that's part of what we're doing. And so keep your eyes out on the socials if you do. I got some questions, Tim, regarding last episode. We started, Lord, teach us to pray. And then, man, it's like that question really stands out in a world that's saturated with prayer already. Hey guys, thanks so much for plugging away week to week. I did not ask this person for permission, but he's one of like our like really great supporters. So I'm just assuming. Regarding the prayer episode, I had some questions or points of clarification that came to mind, and perhaps others too could benefit from these. They may already be in your notes to come. What does the term bless mean, or to bless God? That's a great, great question. So the word in Hebrew is related to a word for kneeling. Now bless, the word bless could be translated as a greeting. It could be translated as an expression of gratitude. When we're blessing God, we're acknowledging the connection between the word bless and the idea of kneeling. So it's an expression of humility from a gift recipient. So to kneel here is the humility of somebody who's receiving something. That's what it means to bless. And other places, to bless means to call out something that's already true. If I bless Tim, I'm not kneeling before Tim, but rather I'm calling out what's true of Tim already. And that's the opposite of cursing at that point. But bless, the way that we're meaning it here, is the idea of kneeling and receiving. It's the idea of humility. So when we're blessing God for the food rather than blessing the food, we're saying, God, because it comes ultimately from your hand, we receive it and kneel. And our blessing of you is a way to kneel before you and receive it as gift. Does that make sense? Yep. Thank you, Tim. Secondly,
I'm always so curious how those things get so twisted where it turned into bless this food.
Oh,
like, you know, is everything a game of telephone after a while where it just kind of gets lost in the...
I don't know. Man, I have no idea.
It's just so interesting. We have so many habits that we just do.
That's it. Yes, autopilot.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's been so great has been the disruption of autopilot with some of these things. So I want to explore some of the disruption around prayer.
Yeah.
How was it that John was teaching his disciples to pray? That's a great question, because they say, Lord, teach us to pray, give us a prayer like John gave his disciples. And I don't know. The guess that I would have as someone who's mediocre, is that often what rabbis would do, because we do have a couple examples where rabbis would shorten the 18/19 benedictions, the Amidah that we talked about last episode. They would shorten that and offer a brief summary, similar to when Jesus summarizes the laws, love your neighbor and love God, love neighbor, that there is a summary statement of the prayer. And what's interesting, if that's true, what's interesting is to compare the original 18/19 benedictions and then to see what Jesus keeps and what Jesus excludes in his summary. That's really interesting. That's why we read them all last episode. So we think maybe that what John gave his disciples is a shortened prayer of those 18 benedictions. We don't know that. That's totally speculative. But obviously John did something beyond kind of the synagogue prayers that were already in existence. Could it have been for the young lower class disciples of Jesus that the 18 benedictions felt overwhelming to them? Thus they asked Jesus to teach them, or would they have been well versed in all of that? I think they would have been well versed. As far as I know, the 18 benedictions by the end of the first century, they were prayed at every synagogue service and in times of crisis. So my assumption is early in the first century, they were a regular part of Jewish liturgy. They would have been familiar with that. And when you look at the Jewish educational system, young, even if you went into trades, you were taught large swaths of Torah through synagogue and through the kind of rabbinical disciple system and educational system of that day. So it wouldn't shock me that they would have been familiar with it. They weren't overwhelmed by it. But Jesus was doing something different than what was in the air. And that's the real part we want to talk about when we get to the Lord's Prayer. So we're just doing background to say, listen, teach us to pray. It's not like they didn't know how to pray. They knew how to pray, but there was something unique about what Jesus was doing. And then last question, Jesus seemed to sum up Torah and prophets such as the greatest commandment passage. So is the Lord's Prayer similar where he's boiling it down to key elements? I think it is. I think that's very well said and a very intelligent question. So these are the famous last words. I was going to say this isn't going to be a super long episode because we're just going to put a little bow on Jewish prayer, but who knows, with Tim freaking Stafford in a great mood today, who knows what could happen.
Woohoo.
So a recap. By the end of the first century, we know that we were praying the Shema consistently. We're praying the Amidah. And again, I hate that I don't know how to pronounce these words, so I just pronounce them as a mediocre person again. And I'm sure they're pronounced much more sweetly than Amidah, but that's my best guess. And so there are others I just want to kind of draw your attention to. There are a couple that are really compelling for me. One is called the Kaddish. I don't know if that's how you say it, but this is an eschatological Jewish prayer that ended, at least for a time, synagogue services. Magnified and sanctified be his great name in the world which he created according to his will. Now, magnified and sanctified, that's hallowing. So that's a Lord's Prayer petition. And may he establish his kingdom. May your kingdom come, may your will be done. May he establish his kingdom during your life and during your days, and during the life of all the house of Israel, speedily and in the near future. Now, establish your kingdom meant come back to us as king over the temple and deal with Rome and all the other things. This isn't a spiritual kingdom. This is like a literal God is king again. Blessed, praised, and glorified. Blessed, praised, and gloried, exalted, extolled, and honored, adored, and lauded be the name of the Holy One. Blessed be he. beyond all blessings and hymns, praises and songs that are uttered in the world. Boom. I mean, that, again, such like high language. They're running out of like verbs, like for blessed, praised, gloried, exalted, extolled, honored, adored, lauded. Blessed be he. So this has become associated kind of with the Jewish prayer of mourning, because central to this prayer is that God would bring his kingdom speedily into all the house of Israel. But one of the things you and I've talked about, Tim, before are things called barakot. And this is I think it's the first tractate of the Mishnah. And it means blessing. So there's a lot in this. A tractate is like a subdivision of the Mishnah. It's devoted entirely to the subject of how,
a glossary after all this.
Seriously. But it's how and when to pray. And customary, at least in traditional Jewish spirituality, is the idea of saying short blessings, barakot, throughout the day as an acknowledgement of God's presence and help. And in the Mishnah, you find blessings for things like entering or leaving a house of study, walking through a dangerous place, eating various kinds of food, celebrating the close of the Sabbath, passing a place where a miracle has occurred, passing a place where idolatry has been uprooted, seeing meteors or lightning, feeling earth tremors or wind, hearing thunder, seeing mountains, hills, seas, rivers, deserts, building a new house or buying new clothes, hearing good news or bad news. And so I want to just give examples. So these were like ordinary parts of human life. And I want to read several of them so you get a feel for how they would work. And you would just have these at the kind of the tip of your tongue. And there are like American equivalents. There's Every Moment Holy, that series of books that our friend Sarah introduced us to at the non-conference a couple of years ago. Like, it's prayers for going on stage, prayers for painting a house, prayers for cleaning, prayers for taking care of children. Like it's that same thing. These were a little punchy though, and they always started with a blessing of God around something. So for instance, when you first open your eyes in the morning, you would say, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who gives sight to the blind." When getting out of bed, you would say, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sets the captives free." I mean, I've been captive to my bed before. I didn't want to get out. When putting on clothes, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who clothes the naked." Now notice, these are so far from sort of the pedantic sort of, "God, I just want to thank you for just doing," you know what I mean? Like, when putting on your shoes, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who provides for all my needs." When you eat bread, you hold up the bread and say, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth." Wine, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine." You say that one a lot, I know, Tim. When you see the first budding tree in springtime, you say, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, who did not omit anything from the world and created within it good creations and good trees for people to enjoy." I've got several, but there's a reason why I'm going over all of these. When you see lightning, falling stars, majestic mountains, great deserts, or the sky and all of its beauty, you say, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has made the creation." When you hear thunder or feel an earthquake, thunder. When you hear thunder or feel an earthquake or thunder,
that's the god of thunder.
Thunder. Yeah. Thor's brother, god of thunder. When you hear thunder or feel an earthquake, you say, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, whose strength and power fill the world." Right? So these are all Godward orientations that just don't just say thank you for the individuals. It's not like just shoes, but it's like, hey, that you mean all my needs. Ooh, thunder. Ooh, isn't that interesting? All of your might and strength is on display when we hear the thunder. When it rains or something else good happens, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who is good and gives us good things." When something terrible happens, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who is the true judge." when you've reached a long-awaited joyous occasion. You say, "Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has given us life, preserved us, and brought us to this season." Now, these prayers are to be recited before enjoying any material pleasure. Notice they involve all the senses, right? And these are prayers that you recite before performing a commandment, or recite upon seeing something unusual, or before going to bed or upon waking. Like there's nothing left out of human life in this. There's even one about going to the bathroom and having orifices that work and allow waste to be expelled.
Yeah.
And if you've ever had those blocked, then you would be thankful if they were unblocked.
Even if it happens at 5 a.m., but you don't get out of bed till 7.
Oh, good callback, Timothy. Good callback. So like when it says that Jesus took bread and when he blessed it, he gave it to his disciples and said, or when he took wine, he blessed it and he gave it to his disciples. Scholars think that's what he's doing. He's uttering these short sort of blessing statements, which were totally common around every meal, but particularly around the Passover meal. And so, again, we're encountering a worldview that I want to draw our attention to, because when you don't live in that worldview, then we pray a lot differently because of the worldview we do live in, right? I'm very individualistic. Salvation is getting me to heaven. I've been told there's a difference between sacred things and secular things, sacred work and secular work, Christian music and non-Christian music, right? What is godly and what is worldly. And that dualism has so infected American Christianity that it infects our prayer. So prayer, we say, is a spiritual discipline, as opposed to, say, driving considerately, or the way you speak to somebody when you're angry. Now, I know there is a subset of things that directly feed the life of the Spirit within us, but calling those things spiritual and not including things like eating and driving and dressing kind of gives us this false impression that spiritual disciplines are those things that are churchy, and then the rest of life is something else. We've talked about this before. So there's a worldview operative here, Tim, that we want to keep drawing attention to. The first one is the purpose of my prayer is to bless God. And it's to receive from God, right? So as an American, I want to differentiate between my prayer as a transaction and my prayer as reception. So prayer as a transaction is, well, I asked and he gave, I obeyed and he blessed, I did this, he did that. And that's how I think it works. That's how I was raised to think it works, right? I tithe, God blesses me financially. I'm pure before marriage. Sex is wonderful and no troubles afterwards. I mean, just that sort of, you pray for your kids turn out great. That's that transactional, individualistic, desire-based Christianity that at least infects my prayer life. And so the goal is praying to God and getting things. And when I don't get things, the question is naturally why? Well, either God isn't good or I don't have enough faith. And I just want to say there are a whole bunch of other options operating in the world, namely a worldview that actually reorients prayer around how great God is. And that doesn't mean we're spiritually bypassing, because so much of covenant prayer in the Old Testament is lamenting. So we're not bypassing this. We're not pretending. But even on the days that we're angry, like it being an angry elf today, I still receive food. I still receive shoes. I still woke up in the morning. And so there's this counterbalance that's operative in my life, where I'm just seeing every good thing as gift.
Yeah, and how does that rewire you too when you're in elf mode?
Yes, it really does. And the neurobiology around this, like if you just look up what gratitude does to people, man, it rewires us as humans. And so I live in a world that just consumes. I'm owed things because I do things. Well, this is a worldview that says, no, our job is to receive from God as gift, not transaction. So I'm not expecting God to give, but I receive it wonderfully when he does. I'm not sitting here demanding and entitled. Rather, I'm just sitting here saying, man, the fact that my eyes work today, how awesome is that?
That's a big distinction. The entitlement piece, just the how did you just word that? Like the expectant versus like the acknowledgement, or how did you just say that? Like, we're not sitting here. There's not an entitlement that's involved in, like, I'm getting this because I deserve it, or I'm the one that's hallowed. I'm the one that's set apart.
That's right.
Versus like just like seeing things. Because I've seen this a lot, and I think this is why I like this prayer so much, is it's so simple and it does reorient pretty well.
Yeah.
If you're really leaning into it.
Yep.
So you can see that. I'm just saying that in modern context, you do see a lot more of the entitlement prayer than you do this kind of like,
for sure,
more inhabited version.
Yes. Ooh, I like that, entitled versus inhabited. Because what you're praying into here, what Jesus is going to have us pray into is the new covenant. He's praying into something that's already true. We're already blessed. We're not praying for blessing. We already have it. And we're acknowledging that we already have all that we need. Now, of course, there are people who are really hungry and really sick and really naked. And the role is that the community comes and answers those prayers.
Yeah.
Because we're the visible presence of Jesus on earth. And we'll get to that in a second. So one of the big pieces of worldview here is that I'm moving from consumer to gift recipient. And that moves my posture from asking and seeking, knocking as an entitled, self-centered individual to rather receiving from God, right? And that doesn't mean all the things that come to my life are from God. We do have an enemy on the field, and I make mistakes, and people are evil, and all the other things. But everything that's good, that's what James will say, every good and perfect gift comes from the Father above. That's why Jesus will say, ask, seek, knock. We hear ask, seek, knock, and that means God should give me what I want. Jesus is saying ask, seek, knock because the Father's already given you what you need. Mm-hmm. And it's just a completely different rewash of like those old patterns. So the first worldview assumption in all of these prayers that Jesus affirms is the bless me versus bless God thing. The bless God means I kneel and receive. I'm not entitled. It's all a gift. And if you think about how little control I have over human life and my life, then it really is all a gift. Like, I mean, there's nothing that guarantees my livelihood through the rest of this podcast, right? There's nothing that guarantees my lungs will work, my blood will circulate. I mean, there's just nothing. So that's one big piece of worldview. The other big piece of worldview that we've already hinted at is that all of life is lived in the presence of God. And this took so long for me to unlearn because I grew up like you did. And I was told, and I agree with this in a very limited way, but I was told you need to have time with God. And so you would have a quiet time. And a quiet time was when you would pray and journal and you would read your Bible and you would engage in what were called spiritual disciplines. And I totally get it. Do I believe in Bible, prayer, journaling? Yes. Do I believe in having dedicated like time and attention given over to those things? Yes, I would recommend everybody do that. Absolutely. But to think that that's time with God when the rest of human life isn't, right, is to succumb to this ancient of all heresies, Gnosticism, which so much of Jewish spirituality wars against, right? It's already blessed. I'm blessed in virtue of being human. I'm blessed in virtue of receiving food. I'm blessed in virtue of breathing in oxygen. I'm blessed in virtue of like seeing sunshine or clouds or gray skies. I'm already blessed. And so there's so much tragedy, and we visit this often, so I won't overdo it, in the idea that there are certain jobs that are sacred. This clergy laity distinction, this idea that somehow pastors or church workers are more holy or spiritual, that is damnable. That is damnable to hell. And that's where it originated. There is nothing in the New Testament. There is hierarchy in the New Testament, and it's a hierarchy of service and responsibility. It's not a hierarchy of authority. So Jesus will say, if you want to be first, then be the greatest servant. That's right. Yes, head servant right there. Absolutely. It's a hierarchy of responsibility and service, not a hierarchy of authority. And so the pastors that preach that there is some big distinction, I had a call to ministry. Bullshit. I don't buy that at all. You didn't have a call to ministry any more than Tim had a call to music, or or somebody had a call to architecture or to stay home with their children. Come on. There's nothing in the New Testament that says that. I just don't buy it. And it feeds so much bad theology. So that, I mean,
and abuse.
Lord. And back to our old friend, abuse. Yes, indeed. So a buddy of mine, one of my favorite pickleball player guys, he blesses the food. It just was one day I was like, yeah, you don't need to. It's already blessed. Sorry. Already blessed. Bless God for the food. He's like, I don't think I can do that. I'm like, that's fine. It doesn't matter. God's so wonderful. But it just represents a bad way of looking at the world where he will say, yep, I have this corporate job. And he will look at me and say, I have a ministry job. And it's like, nope. When did you get into full-time ministry? The moment you said yes to Jesus. So that's another piece of worldview here. There isn't one aspect of human life that's not under the presence of God already. So to say,
I'm going to have distinction, though.
You're a great distinction, because saying I'm going to have time with guys, like saying, well, I want to have time with oxygen. Okay. And I'm all for mindful breathing, but it's not like you go away from oxygen when you stop being mindful about it. So that's another piece of this. The third piece that I just want to call back, we've already hit it, is the idea of prayer as contract versus prayer as covenant. So much of Jewish prayer is about the corporate blessings that we already have versus the individual blessings that I want. And so contract prayer is all about the individual blessings that I want, and I want them, and I pray them. I pray with chutzpah. I ask God for things. Absolutely. I ask. The difference is I'm not bummed when he doesn't say yes. I'm not sitting here entitled, but I will ask God sometimes for money to pay for things, or to lead us to a car that will freaking break down because my daughter Hannah has the worst car luck in the history of the world, right? I will pray, God, would you lead us to a house if we're looking for a house? Yes, utterly and absolutely, I will ask him for things. And there have been times, very practically, material things have been answered. The vast majority of time, however, there's just a void there. And what comes back in the void is, look at how much you already have. Because so much of my prayer is based on, like the Garden of Eden, there's one no. And so I'm going to orient my prayer life around the one no instead of the garden full of yeses. And so to pray covenant prayer is to petition God with the covenant in mind. So, Father, in virtue of believing in Jesus, I am now God's child. Who is in the heavens? The one who created everything and the one who I cannot control. Hallowed be your name. I'm not the center of this story. In fact, I'm volunteering to be one who keeps your name holy. Right? Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Okay, that's right, because I want my kingdom and my will. I mean, you're praying into the new covenant. That's all you're doing, is you're praying into the new covenant. So you're not praying for like it reminds me of like our Christian bestseller lists, where so many of our books, we're the most blessed people in the history of the planet, and we pray from, so we have books about how to be more blessed. And it's like so much of what I pray as a upper middle class white American, it's absurd given the level of wealth I already possess. And the fact that I don't feel wealthy and that I feel like I need more just shows how upside down and perverse culture is. You know what I mean? And so I'm less praying into my will and desire and more praying into the covenant that's already true. And in that covenant, everything's blessed already. I am, and again, I have to keep saying this, individual desires have a place, but they're just placed into a larger context that makes sense of them when we don't get what we want. And in this way, my prayer has changed from becoming outcome focused to praying into the covenant that's already true. And so to thank God for all the material possessions I will enjoy today, and then to say, God, there's one other thing that I really could use help with here. That's a far different prayer than just saying, God, I really just need this one thing. You know what I mean? And so I stand before God as gift recipient instead of consumer, and I lean in on grace rather than contract. So for me, that has been such a different expression of prayer for me. And that's why the Lord's Prayer has been such a gift. The one other thing that's interesting from Jewish prayer is prayer as recollection. So in the Psalms, you will just hear the psalmist replay, God, you did this, and God, you did that, and God, you were here, and God, that you were amazing. And I think part of praying the covenant is just the rehearsal. Now, I do this journaling. I don't do this when I'm talking, praying, but in journaling, I will rehearse the goodness of God in my life, the faithfulness of God in my life, not in some cliched way, but I'm like, God, I've really seen your faithfulness in X, Y, and Z. And that's a form of Jewish prayer too, that is very lacking in my kind of upbringing and understanding. Same with lament.
And it also leans into that neural pathway gratitude thing as well. Like it's going to restructure your how you posture yourself in this world to be able to look back and be like, I feel like I'm in a bad spot right now. However, I'm going to, like you said, roll call through the goodness that I've seen and where God has delivered, and how often does hindsight give you a clearer perspective on blessing or on whatever? Like, so sometimes in the moment where you can get spun out, but looking back and recollecting, it's the same thing as like the He is risen thing, right? Like be in a ditch and be like, well, you know what? Hey, we have to remind ourselves this is what God has done, God is doing, and why. And why this is my present moment is not the only moment.
And that has to be kept in tension with lament. Because and this is where I think we as a subsect of American Christianity, we really get into trouble. So when we pray things like, not my will, but yours be done, that's a good thing to pray. Jesus prayed it. I think we should pray it. But if we're not careful, that just assumes whatever happens was God's will. So we just lost a lady who had been fighting cancer for 10 months. Their family had been asking for prayer and faith-filled prayer, like long life for this person. And so, man, we joined in long life for this person. And if you then say, well, but not my will, but yours be done, then you just assume, well, his will for her was to die with cancer. And I just don't think that's a biblical.
It's just two-dimensional. It's a binary, but we do that with everything.
Exactly. So I try to walk into human life, receiving all good as a gift, and recognizing there is real evil that my gift receiving doesn't eradicate or like bypass away. And both are true at the same time always. That joy and sorrow are companions in the journey. It's not one or the other. And everyone will be like, but when you really learn that, then you're not shocked when bad things happen, because the world is cursed and it's under the reign of sin and death, the powers and the principalities. And you're not shocked when good things happen, because, man, this is still like a God-bathed universe.
Yeah, that's like the tension of the now and not yet.
Exactly.
So I've always really liked that Mr. Rogers. Is that his name? Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood?
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
My brain was saying, no, it's Mr. Robinson.
Well, that was Eddie Murphy too. That was Mr. Robinson's Neighborhood. So you were onto something there. That's old SNL.
But the Mr. Rogers, the quote, where he said, like, every time there's a something bad happens, his mom told him to look for the people that are helping.
Yeah.
And so I've leaned on that hard, because I think it in some ways encompasses what you're talking about, of like, even in the dark, it's just not, everything's not like we're in a dark moment now we're in a light moment. Like it's not just the either or. There is that tension, and often in the dark you can look to, if you're adjusting your eyes to look for the people who are serving in that moment, or if you see the opportunity for you to be the person that can serve in that moment, to be someone who is giving the gift to other people, or be I feel like it can monumentally readjust how you enter a room or anywhere.
And Tim, this is where, and the reason I'm going to draw attention to this again, even though I did it last episode, is that the Lord's Prayer it's equally a call to God to act and a commitment for us to act.
Yeah, I love it.
It's both. And that's why this interview with a rabbi there's Interview with a Vampire. The sequel, Interview with a Rabbi, didn't do as well.
Less blood.
But circumcision, that can be a thing. So, just a couple of quotes from this interview.
Ouch.
There are 613 commandments in the Hebrew Bible. 500 of them are based on temple and sacrifice. 125 of these commands the Jewish people today have the ability to fulfill. So out of the 613, only 125 you can do. And because those are all centered around temple. The Jewish understanding of prayer has always been community focused. The Jewish religion believes that in order for a full prayer service to take place, it requires community. The Jewish community doesn't place the blame on God when bad things happen. We covered this last week, but this is where both tracks are operating: the good gifts and the real sorrow and real evil. Well, what do we do between those? Well, we're in community, so that those who are feeling the track of joy and gift share with those feeling the track of sorrow, and vice versa. He said, the quote is, the Jewish community doesn't place the blame on God. When something goes wrong, we distribute the blame on ourselves and our community and become accountable to our actions as brothers and sisters. What type of community are we that we allowed this person or family to feel isolated, angry, alone, etc.? Our goal is to bring the love of God to people by being the hands and feet of God. And I just thought that's such an interesting thing where I will pray, hey, God, would you help this person and provide for this person? And God will just simply say, great.
Do it.
Yeah. Dumbass. What are you doing there?
I've shared this story a bunch of times, but
do it.
Comes up with this, with the Tony Campolo speaking at that missions event.
Yes.
And they're like, hey, Dr. Campolo, will you pray that we get all the money that we need for this event or whatever? And he said no. And then everyone kind of like were taken aback. And he said, but I bet if everybody in this room takes whatever cash they have in their pockets and lays it on the table, it'll be enough to cover what we're doing. And they did it, and it ended up being more money than was needed for the event or whatever. And it was just like this lesson in like, don't ask for things that God has already given you. Like you have a role to play in this. Yeah. And sometimes you're the answer to your own prayer or whatever. I don't know how you want to phrase that, but I've always loved that. Like we are active participants in this, but yes, prayer has often been like a one-way street. Yeah. God, do something. Yeah. Move. And we can overplay that, right? I mean, I can assume I have way too much authority and power than I really do. But like Dallas Willard, of course, why not? Prayer is talking to God about what we're doing together. I love that. I mean, come on, man. It's like what we talk about when you and I talk about the podcast, what we're going to do together. Like, I love it. We have a role, but it's bigger than either one of us, and it needs both of us to be together. Talking to God about what we're going to do together. Yes, or what we're doing, not what we're doing together. What we're doing together, because it's already here. It's already happening. I love that. Mm-hmm. So I don't think we have any need, Tim Stafford, to overdo this. And so look at 45 minutes, bro. The Voxology community is cheering right now because this is short and sweet. However, the next one will not be. And so we're gonna look at Matthew's version and how Matthew gets into this, and it's so great. So I'm so glad you wanted to do this, Timothy. This is a great topic, I think, and this is where I ground myself in the midst of bad moods, in the midst of things that just feel so out of control and awful. I keep coming back to this. We had the best church question and answer session last weekend. So I was talking about what can we expect from God, and the answer is nothing, because it's all a gift. We were talking about entitlement, believe it or not. There's the parable that Jesus gives, and so a guy, and he's a good guy, and he said this half tongue in cheek, but he was like, this just doesn't sound very compelling. Like, how do you sell this to people? And we just went off. Not we, yours truly, did a slight rant on how
Jesus is only appealing to people who are unhappy with the status quo. If you want your status quo enhanced, if you want your status quo improved, if you just want to be a better husband, a better wife, a better father, a better mother, and you just want to sprinkle a little Jesus on, man, are you going to be disappointed. It's going to feel like drudgery and work, and it's not. Jesus is not going to be super present. If you're at the end of your rope and you're desperate and you've tried being king of your life and you're tired of trying to be king of your life, well, then maybe there's something there. And it was really great because it's kind of like prayer. The point is the reward of following Jesus is Jesus. Now, does Jesus bless and reward? Sure, but those aren't demands and expectations. He's not put in our debt, right? So they're gifts. He gives gifts. And gifts. He gives gifts and gifts. He gives both.
Wow. As you alluded to, and I'm sure we'll see next episode, just the praying this communally and the way the prayer is structured, even when you feel like you're not in need for a specific thing, maybe you're not at the end of your rope, there are folks in your community around you that maybe are, and it's just such a wonderful reorientation of a prayer to hit those things, to see those things, to be aware of those things, which should hypothetically alter the way you show up on like Monday through Saturday.
Right. Yep.
Hypothetically.
Amen.
How you treat your waitress on Sunday afternoon.
Dude, I still meet servers who say Sunday's the worst day to serve.
Oh, and my understanding is it's gotten worse.
I do tip my barista though. I'm not a coffee drinker, but I will get a chai tea every now and again with an oatmeal. They hand me the thing and they say it's going to ask you a question. And I said, no, I don't want that to ask me a question. I want you to ask me a question. She's like, what's about tipping? I'm like, yes, I want to, but I only will if you will do it. You will ask, seek and knock.
Man, I worked there for Starbucks
really
for so long, and the tips were like that's what kept us going.
Yeah, I know. That's why I tip there. But I will say this: I was at the airport, and I'm going through one of those newsstand shops where it's just candy and Dramamine and magazines and whatever else, if they still have those things.
All for $20 each.
Yeah. Hudson News or something. I don't know. That's what it was in Orange County. And so I pick up 2 bottles and I pay for 2 bottles. She asked me if I would like a bag. I say yes. And then she flips me the screen that invites me to tip her. And I can't do it, Tim. I can't do it. I've done all the work here. You know what I mean? I've done all the work. I can't do it. That's where I draw the line.
That's it. Airports out.
Well, if I'm self-serving, then it's self-serving. I'll tip myself. Thank you very much.
Here's one for me.
Yeah. All right, friends. Till next time. We love you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to this conversation. The Voxology Podcast is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is made possible by listeners just like you. If you'd like to partner with us, you can do so at patreon.com/Voxology Podcast or on Tithely, tithe.ly, and just search Voxology Podcast. Links for both are in the show notes and on our website. You can interact with the hosts on Facebook/Voxology Podcast or on Instagram at Voxology Podcast and on Twitter or X, whatever it is, at Mike Erre. Thank you for walking this long road with us.